So it's back to my trio of notes videos, and this one was a request made by my viewer, and that's ink. Now, ink is not very common in fragrance actually. It's something I've not come across long, and there are two quite obvious popular ones missing from the video. You'll see what they are. But yeah, it's actually quite an interesting note. I like it. And it does smell like, well, in these particular fragrances, the ink note does smell of ink, which is, I'm sure, well, us old folks will be very used to what ink smells like from school. We still used to use fountain pens where you'd, you know, dip it in actual ink, fill cartridges with it. We'd chew on pens and they'd explode in our mouths. I'm pretty sure we've all drank a lot of ink in our time, so yeah, we'll get in. So first up for the indie is from a house called Map of the Heart, which is an Australian brand, and they have them interesting heart-shaped bottles that are quite anatomically accurate as it happens. This is a little, I got the 30ml of it, and the best way of describing this fragrance is like an adult Lolita Lempicka, and as well as having kind of having a smoky feel to it and some incense and a kind of darker, richer feel. The violet is much darker. There isn't really much of a fruity thing, though it is there. Obviously there's kind of the licoricey blackness, but there is quite a prominent ink note, which is like a sweetish dark vein running through it. It's hard to describe what ink smells like, isn't it? But we all know it. But it's a kind of darker, slightly sweet one. So you'd imagine it mixes quite well with the licorice actually, and it's just it's really nice. And it does take you this kind of to me, again, in my head, it's like Dracula writing letters at the desk. Of course he doesn't use ink, does he? But it'd probably make it last longer if he mixed the ink with the blood, wouldn't it? Kind of yeah, it'd be much more efficient. And everything's purple and black everywhere, and there's smoky fires and that, and it's quite chilling, but it's got a sweet friendliness about it. It's a really, really good fragrance. So that is Purple Heart from Map of the Heart. So next is from Amouage, and that's Rose Incense 12, is it? I think, or 11, one of them. And well, this is from the Opus line, obviously, that's why I'm thinking that. This one is okay. It's as the name would imply, it's rose and incense. The rose is quite easy going actually. It's not an awful rose. It does start off a little sharp for me, but then just kind of mixes with the incense, and you have this. It basically becomes like a rosy musk. I think there's quite a kind of earthy patchouli element about it as well. But the ink does run through it. And mixes nicely with that kind of incense note as a kind of blackness, but also to me it tends to smell a bit like the rose petals have been dipped in ink, so you get this kind of slightly bitter, dark but red rose petals. So you can imagine what I mean, like the petals are just slightly covered at the bottom with the ink staining. It's really rather lovely actually. Just didn't kind of blow my mind, and it's quite similar to other things, but it is nevertheless a very pleasant one. I don't need to waffle on really, but yeah, the ink in it suits as a kind of, it mixes with the incense to add to that darkness, but also kind of coats the rose petals, which makes it fairly interesting. So that's a Rose Incense Opus 11 or 12 from Amouage. And finally is the designer, and that's Tender from Miller Harris. Some of these fragrances I absolutely love, and I think this could be one on my list. And this basically opens with a hyacinth and rose, so it's got that kind of green, purpley, spring-like feel mixing with the rose is red. It's not too bitter, it's not too sharp, it's not particularly overly sweet. And there's this kind of there's a deep darkness about it all. There's also some benzoin which gives it this kind of feel. Now to me the licorice early on is quite licorice, the ink quite early on is licorice like. It's a little bit sweet and it's very black. It's like a candied licorice thing, if you get what I mean. Which I suppose does smell a bit like ink, doesn't it? And that kind of sits in there, adding that beautiful dark depth to it. And then as it develops more in my head, the licorice splits into two. Ink. Remember, this is an ink video, John. The ink splits into two to have that licoricey feel, which kind of goes over it. But there's also this kind of black charred feel under it all. And this marriages perfectly with the hyacinth and the kind of greeny, purpley, spring floral feel that's in there. And the rose is a little bit deeper. It's not so much prominent, it is the hyacinth mainly. There might be wisteria or something like that. Them kind of bluey purple, not overly sweet, but you know, spring-like flowers. And yeah, it's really, really nice actually. So that's Tender from Miller Harris. So yeah, hopefully kept it brief. These ink is an unusual note, and it's an interesting note to find it. Strange it's not used more, because it is pleasant. Maybe it's really hard to do actually. But obviously missing from this is ink from Acro. Very good fragrance. I don't think I know it well enough yet to speak in a lot of detail about it. But it's a really good. It does smell of ink. And vetiver me. I'm not talking about that one in depth, but like I say, it's like an inky vetiver. It's really nice. There's squid from Zoologist that I missed out. I think there's another really big one that I know. Can't remember. Anyway, what about yourselves? Do you like ink in fragrances? What's your favourite ink fragrance? Have you got any more note requests for future? Alright folks, thanks for watching this ramble. Bye.